yay. Yay la 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 la, yay la 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 la, yay la 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 la, yay la 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 la. La 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 ya ya da 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 ya da 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 ya da 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 ya da 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 ya ya da 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 ya da 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 ya da 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 ya da 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 die yan da 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 die yan da 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 die yan da 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 die yan da 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 die yan da 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 die yan da 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 die yan da 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 die ya da 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 ya da 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 ya da 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 Shiru l'Adonai kol haaretz Shiru l'Adonai shir chadash Shiru l'Adonai kol haaretz Shir Chadash. Sing unto God, all the earth, a new song. I will sing unto God a new song. Sing unto God, and we'll all sing along, all the earth, a new song unto God. Shiru l'Adonai kol haaretz shiru shiru l'Adonai shir chadash.
Well, you can certainly feel that summer is here. And we join tonight to give thanks to God for the miracle of creation, the world we live in, and all the many blessings that we have around us in our lives. So let us take a moment now to reflect on the week that has passed so that we can move forward into the promise of tomorrow and celebrate the Shabbat with joy and thanksgiving.
Shabbat Shalom. My name is Allison Warzala, and it is my pleasure to welcome you to Anshe Emeth Memorial Temple. Whether you're here with us tonight in the sanctuary or joining us on the live stream, we're so glad you could be with us this evening. Now, I'd like to invite Marcia Eisenberg up to the bima to light our Shabbat candles. Blessings can be found on pages 2 and 3. Shabbat Shalom.
As these Shabbat candles give light to all who behold them, so may we, by our lives, give light to all who behold us. As their brightness reminds us of the generations of Israel who have kindled light, so may we in our own day be among those who kindle light. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lahadlik ner shel Shabbat. Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, sovereign of the universe, who hallows us with mitzvot, commanding us to kindle the light of Shabbat.
Amen.
Shabbat shalom.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat.
We continue with L'chadodi on pages 20 and 21.
Lecha lecha dodi, likrat kala, pene Shabbat nekabela. Lecha lecha dodi, likrat kala, pene Shabbat nekabela la la. Lecha dodi, likrat kala, pene Shabbat nekabela. Lecha dodi, likrat kala, pene Shabbat nekabela. Shamor v'zachor b'dibor echad, Hishmi'anu el ha'meyuchad, Aharonai echad u'shemo echad, L'shem u'tiferet v'litehila la la. Lecha dodi, likrat kala, pene Shabbat nekabela. Lecha dodi, likrat kala, pene Shabbat nekabela. Likrat Shabbat lechu v'nelcha, ki mekor ha'beracha merosh mikerem nesucha. Sof ma'aseh b'machshava techila la. Lecha dodi, likrat kala, pene Shabbat nekabela. Lecha dodi, likrat kala, pene Shabbat nekabela. Mikdash melech ir melucha, kumitzeim mitoch ha'afecha, rav lach shevet be'emek ha'becha, vehu yachamol alayichem la. Lecha dodi, likrat kala, pene Shabbat nekabela. Lecha dodi, likrat kala, pene Shabbat nekabela. Hitna ari me'afar kumi, livshei bigdei tifar techami, al yaben ishai ben talachmi, korva el nafshi ge'ala. Lecha dodi, likrat kala, pene Shabbat nekabela. Lecha dodi, likrat kala, pene Shabbat nekabela. Hitoreri, ki ba'orech kubiyomi, uri shir daberi, kevod Adonai alayich nigla. Lecha dodi, likrat kala, pene Shabbat nekabela. Lecha dodi, likrat kala, pene Shabbat nekabela. Lo tevoshi velo tikalmi, ma tishtochachi, u'ma temi bach yechesu. אני אני ונבנתה עיר על תילה, לך דודי לקרא קלה, פני שבת נקבלה, לך דודי לקרא קלה, פני שבת נקבלה, והיו למשיסה שוסייך ורחקו, כל מבלייך יסיס עלייך אלוהייך, כמסוס חתן על כלה, לך דודי לקרא כלה, פני שבת נקבלה, לך דודי לקרא כלה, פני שבת נקבלה, ימין ושמאל תפרוצי ואת אדוני תעריצי על יד איש בן פרצי ונשמחה ונגילה, לך דודי לקרא כלה, פני שבת נקבלה, לך דודי לקרא כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. בואי ושלום עטרת בעלה, גם בשמחה ובצהלה, תוך אמוני עם סגולה. בואי חלה, בואי חלה, לך דודי לקרא כלה, פני שבת נקבלה, לך דודי לקרא כלה, פני שבת נקבלה.
Shabbat Shalom. We continue on page 26 with Chatzi Kaddish.
יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה,
Amen.
בעלמא דברך חירותי וימליך מלכותי, בחייכון וביומכון ובחייכו בית ישראל, בעגלה בעגלה ובזמן קריב אמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מבורך, לעולם עולם מעלמיה.
יתברך.
יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי דקודשה בריחו. לעילה מכל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, תאמירן בעלמא ואמרו Amen.
We rise in either body or spirit for the Baruch Hu on page 28.
Yai dai dai, yai dai dai dai, yai dai 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 dai, yai dai dai, yai dai dai, yai dai 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 dai, yai dai 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 dai, yai dai 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 dai, yai dai 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 dai. Yai dai 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 dai, yai dai 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 dai. Baruchu et Adonai hamevorach. Baruch Adonai hamevorach leolam vaed. Baruch Adonai hamevorach
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bevaro ma'ariv aravim, b'chokhmah poteach sha'arim, uvitfunah mishaneh itim, machalif et hazmanim, u'mesader et hakochavim b'mishmerotehem barakia kirtzono. Borei yom v'layla, golel or mipnei choshech, v'choshech mipnei or, ma'avir yom u'mevi layla, u'mavdil ben yom u'vein layla, Adonai Tzvaot Shemo, El Chai V'Kayam Tamid Imloch Aleinu Le'olam Va'ed, Baruch Atah Adonai Hamariv Aravim.
אהבת עולם בית ישראל, עמך אהבת, תורה ומצוות, חוקים ומשפטים, אותנו למדת. אהבת עולם בית ישראל, עמך אהבת, תורה ומצוות, חוקים ומשפטים, אותנו למדת. על כן אדוני אלוהינו, בשוכבנו ובקומנו, בשוכבנו ובקומנו נשיח בחוקיך, ונשמח בדברי תורתך ובמצוותיך, ובמצוותיך לעולם ועד. כי הם חיינו באורך ימינו, ובהם נגד יומם ולילה. באהבתך אל תסיר ממנו לעולמים. ברוך אתה אדוני, אוהב עמו ישראל. שמע ישראל אדוני אלוהינו, אדוני אחד. 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 ברוך שם כבוד מלכותו לעולם ועד. ברוך שם כבוד מלכותו לעולם ועד. שמע ישראל אדוני אלוהינו, אדוני אחד. שמע ישראל אדוני אלוהינו, אדוני אחד.
Please be seated.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך. והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברתם בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. Ani Adonai Elohechem, Adonai Elohechem, Amen.
Standing on the parted shores of history, we still believe what we were taught before ever we stood at Sinai's foot, that wherever we go, it is eternally Egypt, that there is a better place, a promised land, that the winding way to that promise passes through the wilderness, that there is no way to get from here to there except by joining hands and marching together.
Yai dai dai da dai da 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 dai. Yai dai dai da dai da 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 dai. Yai dai da dai da dai da 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 dai. Yai da dai dai da 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 dai. Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi kamocha nehedar b'kodesh, nora tehi lo rosefele, nora tehi lo rosefele, malechutecha ra'u vanecha, bokei ayam lifnei Moshe u'Miriam, ze Elianu ve'amru, ze Elianu ve'amru, Adonai yimloch le'olam va'ed, Adonai yimloch le'olam va'ed, le'olam va'ed. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom, leshalom, v'ha'amidenu shomreinu lechayim. Ufros aleinu sukat shlomecha, Ufros aleinu sukat shlomecha. Amen. Shelter us beneath thy wings, O Adonai. Guard us from all harmful things, O Adonai. Keep us safe throughout the night, till we wake with morning's light. Teach us, God, wrong from right. Amen. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom, leshalom, v'hamidenu shomreinu lechayim. Ufros aleinu sukat shlomecha, Ufros aleinu sukat shlomecha. Yismechu v'malchutcha Shomerei Shabbat. Yismechu v'malchutcha Shomerei Shabbat. Ve'korei oneg, ve'korei oneg. Yismechu v'malchutcha Shomerei Shabbat. Amekareshe, Mekareshe Shevi'i, כולם ישבעו ויתענגו מטובך, ישמחו במלכותך, שומרי שבת, ישמחו במלכותך, שומרי שבת. וקורא עונג וקורא עונג, ישמחו במלכותך, שומרי שבת. והשביעי רצית בו וקידשתו, חמדת ימים אותו קראת, זכר למעשה וראשית. ישמחו במלכותך, שומרי שבת, ישמחו במלכותך, שומרי שבת. אוי קורא עונג וקורא עונג, ישמחו במלכותך, שומרי שבת. ישמחו במלכותך, שומרי שבת. ישמחו במלכותך, שומרי שבת. Na 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 Adonai. Na 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 sfatai tiftach. Na 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 ufi yagid. Ufi yagid tehilatecha. Na 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 Adonai. Na 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 sfatai tiftach. Na 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 ufi yagid. Ufi yagid tehilatecha. Na 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 Adonai. Na 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 sfatai tiftach. Na 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 ufi yagid. Ufi yagid tehilatecha. Na 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 Adonai. Adonai sfatai tiftach. Na 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 ufi yagid. Ufi yagid tehilatecha. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu ve'Elohei avoteinu v'imotenu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, ve'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, ve'Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomer Chasadim Tovim, Vekonei Hakol, Vezocher Chasdei Avot ve'Imahot, Umevii Geula Livnei Bneihem, Leman Shemo Be'ahava, Melech Hozer U'Moshiach U'Magen, Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham, Bezrat Sarah, atah Gibor le'olam Adonai, Mechayei hakol atah Rav lehoshia, Morid hatah, Mechapel chayim bechesed, Mechayei hakol berachamim rabim, Tzomek ייסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר. מי כמוך בעל גבורות, ומי דומה לה, מלך ממית ומחיה, ומצמיח ישועה, ונאמן אתה להחיות הכל. ברוך אתה אדוני, מחיי הכל. אתה קדוש ושמך קדוש, וקדושים בכל יום יהללוך סלה. ברוך אתה אדוני, האל הקדוש.
We continue now with Tfilat Halev, the personal and private prayer of the heart, either using the words that are in your Siddur up to page 63, or more importantly, using the words inscribed upon your heart, after which you may be seated.
עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ועל כל יושבי תבל, ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ועל כל יושבי תבל, ואמרו אמן. Yain da 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 da. Ya da 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 da. Ya da 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 da. Yain da 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 da. Ya da 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 da. Ya da 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 da. Ya da 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 da. Ose shalom bimromav, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ועל כל יושבי תבל ואמרו אמן. Yain da 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 ya da 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 ya da 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 ya da 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 yain da 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 ya da 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 ya da 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 veimru amen.
There are two events that occurred this week that originally I thought were not related, but when looking back on them, realized that they were intrinsically linked with one another. I'm going to start with the second event. For the last 2 days, I and about 300 other people were at a meeting in New York City entitled Recharging Reform Judaism. And the event itself was filled with wonderful speakers pontificating upon numerous topics, which was meant to gear us towards returning to the values that drove us as Reformed Jews to be Reformed Jews. They spoke about how we need to be more within the particular of who we are as Jews, guiding us to universal values, but starting in the particular, that we should do tikkun olam and social action, not because our political or social values dictate this and then find the Jewish reason why afterwards, but to be rooted in Jewish text and Jewish learning as to why we participate in the world. That we need to talk more about God in theology and spirituality in synagogue life, and that there are too many synagogues that are devoid of God out there. And they spoke about Israel being at the core of Jewish peoplehood, how that in order to be fully part of the Jewish people, you need to have a connection and a relationship to the state of Israel. And they voiced their dismay at a younger generation which seems to be distancing themselves from the state of Israel. I listened to many of my old professors speak, and it was a joy to hear some of them speak again for the first time in 11 years, to listen to Larry Hoffman, Rabbi Dr. Larry Hoffman, speak endlessly about nothing and still be absolutely thrilled because he's an amazing speaker. But where I thought the real excitement came was within the small group discussions afterwards. I led one on tikkun olam and the difference between particular and universalism. And the discussion that we had was quite remarkable. And I was there with Dave Snyder and a couple of other congregants, and as we were leaving, we were remarking on how fortunate we are to be at Anshe Ameth. I'm biased. I'm supposed to be biased. I completely acknowledge that and own it. I'm going to put that out front. But they, while we were driving back to New Jersey, reported how at these other meetings they were at, how rabbis voiced how they felt like they couldn't talk about certain things. They couldn't talk about Israel anymore because of how political Israel has gotten, or they couldn't talk about Tikkun Olam anymore because of how political that's gotten, or they can't talk about God anymore because everybody has a different belief in God. And I think at one point somebody asked one of the rabbis talking about all the things they felt like they weren't allowed to talk about from the Bima, and said, well, what are you allowed to talk about? I feel very fortunate that I never feel like I have to censor what I'm going to say from the Bima. But in my group, we were talking about how we need to be rooted in the particular of who we are as Jews, and that there are many things that people seem to be conflating erroneously with one another. For example, we spoke about how we needed to return to feeling like we are part of the tribe of Israel, but how feeling like you're part of the tribe of Israel doesn't mean that you need to behave in a tribalistic manner, in us versus them, that we're going to circle our wagons and not talk to the other, but that we could be proud of being part of this tribe and still not behave in a tribalistic or nationalistic way. That we could be particularistic about who we are as Jews, but see that as a way of getting to one another. An example that I brought up dates back about almost 2 decades now, of when I was teaching 4th grade, way before before I went to rabbinical school. I was talking to my 4th graders about what's the difference between tzedakah and charity. And they couldn't figure out the difference between tzedakah and charity. Well, if I give tzedakah, what makes it tzedakah versus somebody who might just give $1 to somebody on the street, what makes that charity? I hadn't yet gone to the Hebrew Union College to earn my Master's of Education, so I didn't know at the time that not being able to differentiate between the two was a normal stage of human development, that I shouldn't have been so hard on them. But from my vantage point, the reason why it's tzedakah and not charity is because it comes from a place of commandedness. We are commanded to tithe. It's called tzedakah. And that it's not just that we're moved by our heart to give, but that we know that we're commanded to give, that it's a necessity, that it's an obligation. Because if we wait for our hearts to be moved to do something, we might not ever do it. But if we know we're commanded to do something like tzedakah, then it elevates it to a certain level. That's the particular. As Jews, we are commanded, it is tzedakah. But who we give it to is universal. Right? We are in an era right now where we seem to be conflating particularistic with bad and universalistic with good. But in truth, the particular of who we are as Jews can lead us to the universal in terms of who we help and who we are connected with. And yes, I believe we don't talk about our connection to God as much as we ought to. That if we are grounded in a theology that tells us this is what your obligation is to do, then who is it that is obligating us to do these things? We went off script in my small group conversation because our speakers that morning had pretty much mentioned all of our points because they didn't give us their scripts ahead of time. So we opened up the conversation to, what do you feel is missing? What do you wish was being said at this convention that's not being said? And the answers that the class gave me was, where's the voice of dissent? Where's all the people under 40, of which we could count 5? I'm no longer one of them. But where's the next generation saying this is what we believe Reform Judaism is? Because they weren't there. Then we got into a complaint section because we're Jews, so we're going to complain. It's a bylaw, it's section 3b. And the complaints were, at our synagogues, We've become bar mitzvah mills. They leave, they don't come back. We had one confirmand. My reaction is, we'll get rid of confirmation, they'll stay through graduation, but that was a step too far for many. We got rid of confirmation, I think, in the 1920s or 30s, but one of the other things that people seem to be conflating was that easy access to the synagogue means that we're offering a Judaism that's watered down. Because we don't want anybody to feel bad, and we don't want anybody to feel like they're Jew-barrassed. That was a term that was used. So we've got to make things at the lowest common denominator for easy access for entry. And I think that's one of the false equivalencies that we're given. Because I think you can have easy access to the temple, but still have it be a place of substantive learning. And that goes to the first event that we had this week, which was our Matan Award Tuesday night. For those of you who don't know, there's a group called Matan, which is nationally renowned for helping those with disabilities be included in Jewish places of learning and synagogues and a whole slew of arena of locations. And Anshe Emeth was awarded the Trailblazer Award for what we do in terms of inclusion and the work of inclusion. We have made that entry point so accessible to people, but still have maintained a high level of education. And you can have easy entry. And how do we welcome you in? And how do you not feel like the stranger when you walk in the door? And how do we make you feel like you're one of the group? I've always been proud of Anshe Emeth. At other synagogues, when I'm meeting with prospective families, I might need to say, come Friday night, people are going to greet you. You're not going to feel alone. People will welcome you in. And then I might have to call 10 or 15 people to make sure that happens. At Anshe Emeth, I don't need to do that because it naturally happens. You can be a place of welcome, a place of security, a place of warmth, a place of love, and still be a place of substance. Having those entry points be accessible doesn't mean that you don't have to be a place of substance. This is where I lost people at the meeting. If I were to sum up what I think the entire two-day conference was about, is saying that Reform Judaism needs to return to substance. That our synagogues should not be refuges from the world outside, but a place where we can make meaning out of the storms in our lives. That the synagogue should be a place rooted in Jewish values and Jewish lessons and Jewish education, because education is about life. Education is about growth. Education is about the promise of tomorrow. And when we're a place of substance and wrestling with the unknown, we are a place that makes meaning. And that I think far too many places became complacent in the 80s and 90s of we just need to make the bar low and people will join because it's 1 day a week of school or it's 2 days a week of school and they need a bar mitzvah. And it can just be easy. But I think that's why people are leaving. I think that's why people are not affiliating with synagogues. It's because they've become accustomed to the idea that synagogues are not a place of substance and meaning. It's a place of ease, and that's not what I'm looking for. And I don't want to waste my time or my money on that. I need something in my life that gives me grounding and rooting, that helps me understand how do I move forward. Open up the newspaper. Open up the newspaper. Any article on the first page of any newspaper, even the first 5 pages, with what we're seeing in terms of how New York City is treating the homeless, or the debt ceiling, and borrowing versus going up to a breaking point, or what's happening with LGBTQ rights, or how we interact with one another. Judaism has an answer for all of those things. And it's not monolithic either. Rabbis like saying this is the answer, and here's how we should think about it. But the truth is that it's not monolithic. In our Talmud, take the debt ceiling, for example. The Talmud argues that you shouldn't borrow more than you can pay back. The Talmud tells you that you should not risk financial jeopardy, borrowing more money than you can afford. On the other hand, you need to make sure that people are secure, and then you need to make sure that people have money, and that if people can't afford things, you need to step in and create a social safety net. In fact, that term in Bava Batra 8b, the rabbis are compelled and have the ability and the legal right to compel people who don't want to give tzedakah to create a social safety net. That phrase, social safety net's there. Some of you were in my Talmud class when we studied this. That the rabbis can't force people to give tzedakah because it's a commandment, and you need to make sure people have a net to fall onto if they go broke. It's not monolithic. And to just talk about how we feel precludes a whole side of Judaism that gives us guidance and direction on how to live our lives. I wish there were more people there. I wish the younger generation was there too. Because I want to hear their voices. I want to hear the dissent. I want to hear the people saying, you don't need to have a relationship with Israel to be part of the Jewish people. I strongly believe that Israel should be part of your identity. But I want to hear the dissent, because the dissent is part of who we are. Right? The Talmud records both the agreement and the dissent. Sometimes it doesn't tell us what's the right answer either, but the dissent is vitally important. And I don't think we're going to recharge Judaism or recharge Reform Judaism without hearing the voice of the dissent, because that voice is important too. Our synagogue should also not be a place of one monolithic viewpoint of the world. This was something that was mentioned multiple times at the convention, is that the Reform movement should not just be an arm of the Democratic Party, that it needs to account for all people, and that it needs to have conservative as well as liberal voices, and that we should enable those voices to thrive and feel safe voicing their opinions. I firmly agree with that. Judaism is about learning and growth, and it's also about action. We read about that in our Torah service when we put the Torah away. We learn in order to grow, we learn in order to do, right? Education leads to action. But when we only allow one voice to be taught and one voice to be heard, how can we do and how can we grow? Our synagogue should be the place where we can have substantive conversations with one another of differing voices. We call it a machloket b'shem shamayim, a debate for the sake of heaven. There are so few places in this world where we can have those debates before they just go downhill. The synagogue should be one of those places, because it's not for our own vanity, but it's for the sake of God, a machloket b'shem shamayim, a debate for the sake of heaven. This should be a place where God lives, where we live, and where Judaism is a substantive force in our lives. As one of my professors used to say, If you teach pediatric Judaism, you get pediatric Jews. We should bring in the level of Judaism that helps us thrive in the world. I feel like we do that here, but I feel like we could do it even stronger. I'm really excited for the year to come. I'm really excited for the journey we're all going to go on together. I'm really excited for the speakers and teachings that we're setting up in our program book next year, because it's going to be a fantastic year where we try and make meaning out of a world that at times feels meaningless. And we'll go on a wonderful journey together as we, at least here at Anshe Emeth, recharge how we connect to our Judaism, to our people, to our faith, and to our God. And then maybe some of the other synagogues will follow suit. Shabbat Shalom.
Though the time be far, I know that come it will, when each nation shall each other bless, and peace the earth shall fill, and God shall reign over the earth. On that day God shall be one, and your name it shall be one. On that dawn of peace we'll smash that spear of war, and everyone beneath their vine and fig shall be afraid no more. And God shall reign over the earth. On that day God shall be one, and your name it shall be one. Bayom hahu yeh Adonai echad u'shemo echad. Bayom hahu yeh Adonai echad. And it shall come to pass that peace is what we'll find. Then we'll join our hands with fellow man across the border line, and God shall reign over the earth. On that day God shall be one, and your name it shall be one. Bayom hahu yeh Adonai echad u'shemo echad. Bayom hahu yeh Adonai echad.
Shabbat Shalom once again.
Shabbat Shalom.
Just a few quick announcements before we conclude our service. Our first Shabbat barbecue of the season is June 23rd at 5:45, followed by services at 7:30. At that service, we're going to have a special oneg honoring 15 years of dedicated service of Heather Kibble as our executive director. So make sure you join us for that service on June 23rd. And please, 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 RSVP for the dinner beforehand so Team B'tei Avon knows how many people to cook for. If they don't know, things go off the rails. So please RSVP. At the conclusion of our service, we're going to join together in Lippman Hall for Kiddush and Motzi. and a wonderful oneg sponsored by Encore in honor of Roz and Steve Shaw for all that you've done for Encore, and sending you on a fond farewell as you head down south, and maybe we'll take the boot off your car so you can leave later. I haven't decided yet. I think that it was so hot today as a way of saying, are you sure you want to move south? It's going to be even more warm. So, but we wish you well. And a special thank you to Matthew Williamson as well, our accompanist for the evening. Thank you for the beautiful music you gave us tonight. On this Shabbat Eve, as we join together as one congregation to celebrate creation, the joy of life and living, we turn our thoughts to those in our community for whom life has become precarious because of health or hospitalization. O God of healing, in our hearts we name those who are facing illness and pain. We join our prayers together with the prayers of those who love them. Give them renewed comfort and courage. Strengthen in them the healing powers you place within us all, and guide the hands and hearts of those who are entrusted with their care. May the knowledge of your love and ours give added hope to them and their families, and may they find even greater strength because our prayers are linked to theirs. Mishaberach avotenu v'imotenu hu yivarech et hacholim v'refuat nefesh v'refuat haguf hashta'ah b'ga'ala v'zman kariv v'nomar Amen. May the one who blessed our ancestors bless those in need of healing. May God swiftly send them a complete renewal of body and spirit as together we say, Amen.
Mishaberach Avotenu Avraham Yitzchak veYaakov Sarah Rivka Rachel veLeah Hu Yivarech v'yirapeh et hacholim El Narefanala El Narefanala El Narefanala El Narefanala Mishaberach Avotenu Avraham Yitzchak veYaakov Sarah Rivka Rachel veLeah Hu Yivarech v'yirapeh et hacholim.
We continue on page 282 as we rise in either body or spirit for Elena.
Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol, l'teit gdula u'yotzer b'reishit, shelo asanu b'goyei ha'aratzot, ve'lo samanu k'mishpachot ha'adama, shelo sam chelkeinu kahem, ve'gor aleinu kechol hamonam, va'anachnu korim, u'mishtachavim u'modim, lifnei melech malchei hamlachim, hakadosh baruch hu.
Page 287. May we gain wisdom in our lives, overflowing like a river with understanding, loved each for the peace we bring to others. May our deeds exceed our speech, and may we never lift up our hand but to conquer fear and doubt and despair. Rise up like the sun, O God, over all humanity. Cause light to go forth over all the lands between the seas, and light up the universe with the joy of wholeness, of freedom, and of peace.
ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו אחד ושמו אחד ושמו אחד.
When cherished ties are broken and the chain of love is shattered, only trust and strength of faith can line the heaviness of the heart. At times, the pain of separation seems more than we can bear, but if we dwell too long on our loss, we embitter our hearts and harm ourselves and those about us. The psalmist said that in his affliction, he learned the law of God, and in truth, grief is a great teacher when it sends us back to serve and bless the living. We learn how to counsel and comfort those who, like ourselves, are bowed with sorrow. We learn when to keep silent in their presence and when a word will assure them of our love and concern. Thus, even when they are gone, the departed are with us, moving us to live as in their higher moments they themselves wished to live. We remember them now, they live in our hearts, and they are an abiding blessing. We name now those whom death has recently taken from us, those whose families are observing the Shloshim. Remember John Maltby, husband of Leslie, father of Erica and Joseph and Alexa, brother of Jason and Betsy, and Christian of blessed memory and Jane. Remember Jackie Becker, wife of Arnold of blessed memory, mother of Mark of blessed memory and Jan, Ronnie and Lisa, and Susan, and aunt of Michael and Helen Brown. We remember Doris Kahn, wife of Stuart of blessed memory and Jerome of blessed memory, mother of Richard and Tony, Paul and Janet, Jim and Jen, and stepmother of Meir and Cheryl, Susan and Anna, grandmother of Barry and Natalia, Brooke, and Stephanie and Haley, and step-grandmother of Aaron and Shuli, and great-grandmother of Maya and Mateo. And we remember Robert Friedman, husband of Rhoda Friedman, father of Karen and Lisa, uncle of Nancy and Henry, great-uncle of Benjamin and Joshua, and grandfather of many, many grandchildren. And on this Shabbat, we also recall those dear ones who died at this season in years past, and whose names we record with love in our service booklet this evening. Their names are forever bound to our hearts and are permanently inscribed throughout our building. And if you are joining us tonight online to say Kaddish for a loved one, I want to invite you to say their names aloud at home or type their names into one of the chat features so that we can lift up the names of your loved ones together with you. And if you're joining us in person to say Kaddish for a loved one, I invite you to say their names as I look around the sanctuary.
Francis Kupferman.
Zikronam Livracha. May all their names and memories only be for a blessing. I invite all the mourners, if able, to rise for Kaddish Yatom, Mourners Kaddish, on page 294. Yitkadal, Vikadash, Shemer Rabah, Bialma Divrach Rute, Viamlich Malchute, Bechayechon, Viomechon, Vchaye Dekol Beit Yisrael, Bagala Visman Kari Viamru, Amen. Yehesh Me Rabba Mivrach, Leolam Olome Almaya, Yit Barak, Vish Tabak, Vit Ba'ar, Vitrumam, Vit Nase, Vit Hadar, Vitale, Vitalal, Shemedu Kudasha, Brichu, Leila Min Ko Birchata Vishirata, Tush Bechata Venechamata, Damiran Bialma Vimru, Amen. Yehesh Lama Rabba Min Shemaya, V'chaim Aleinu Ve'al Ko Yisrael, Vimru, Amen. O say Shalom B'mormav, Hu Yaseh Shalom, Aleinu Ve'al Ko Yisrael, Vimru, Amen. May the source of peace bestow peace to all who mourn. May we be a source of comfort to all who are bereaved, as we say, Amen.
O say Shalom B'mormav, Hu Yaseh Shalom, Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'imeru, Amen. We close this evening's service with the singing of Adon Olam on page 321. We rise. Adon Olam Asher Malach B'terem Kol Yetzir Nivra Li'et Nasa B'chefso Kol Azai Melech Shemo Nikra Azai Melech Shemo Nikra Ve'acharei kiklot hakol levado yimloch nora ve'hu haya ve'hu hoveh ve'hu yeh betifara ve'hu yeh betifara ve'hu echad ve'ein sheni להמשיל להכבירה, בלי ראשית, בלי תכלית, ולא העוז והמשרה, ולא העוז והמשרה, והוא אלי וחי גואלי, בצור חבלי בעשרה, והוא ניסי ומנוס לי, מנת כוסי ביום מקרא, מנת כוסי ביום מקרא, בידו אף כדרוכי, בעת תישן בעירה, ועם רוחי גביעתי, אדוני לי ולא אירא, אדוני לי ולא אירא.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.